Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. I want to give you a little bit of an announcement here, too, that if you're looking to float this weekend, at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville, you need to go ahead and make some plans. We are starting to see availability become somewhat limited. If you're going to be in town for the ball game and you've considered floating, maybe you're not from the area, maybe you are from the area. Dial 662-268-7601 and you can go float, and you would be amazed at what it does for you. We get amazing reviews. A lot of people have said, you know what, I never knew what to expect, and now I don't know what I was missing. And so you can come float. It is a great, restful opportunity for you to give yourself a break, whether you've got chronic pain or anxiety, or maybe you just need some time to yourself. Because here's what we do. We say, I'm going to take some time to myself, and what do? We sit in our beds, we play on our phone, we got the TV going. Maybe you're on the couch, maybe you're in the bed, I don't know. But your mind is still at work, and this gives you an opportunity for your mind to rest and kind of repair some other, issues in your life. It's an incredible experience. I floated once, bought a franchise. We've been open now, I guess, about 8 months. Yeah. About 8 months, and I got a core group of members that come do a good job. Maybe the discount program is for you if you plan to become a regular floater. But think about that too as a gift idea when that hard-to-buy person, or maybe somebody that you know that needs a break. I had somebody stop me at a book signing Friday and said that their daughter and son came, and they kept the kids to give mom and dad a bit of a date night. And they went, and she said, you know what? I have not had quiet in 5 years until then. I did not realize how stressed and anxious that I was. And they're going to be back. And now Grandma and Grandpa are going to come. So get more information at TrueRest.com. And you can find us on socials, True Rest of Starkville. You can speak to my lovely wife as we get ready to get into the weekend. Football weekends have been really good to us, too. And so be sure and do that. Now, breaking news, too. Mario Craver expected to be out this week. That's not a big surprise. Not exactly sure what we're going to get from DeMonte Russell. We'll find out tonight. It is evident that Jeff Lebby is not going to talk about injuries on Monday. And hey, that's perfectly fine. But it's pretty clear he's not going to talk about them until he has to talk about them, unless they're a season-ending type situation. And he said that before, too. It's like the Blake Shapen thing. Like, we want to go ahead and get it out there when there's going to be, a season-ending injury. But, Mario Craver not expected to play this week. And, again, we'll find out tonight when the availability report comes out. We also expect, an update on DeMonte Russell. But, by and large, we expect State to be in pretty good health for this ball game. We're going to take a lot of time today and kind of preview Arkansas. You know how it is. A lot of times you don't pay special attention to a team until we get ready to play them. If you've been looking for information about the ball game, you can find it at genespage.com, the Mississippi State source for sports information. Yesterday we had, what the players are saying. The Arkansas players had their player availability yesterday at 4 players speak. We're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show. You can read everything they had to say about your Bulldogs for free over at genespage.com. And, of course, we had the Monday presser for Jeff Lebby, and also all the comments that Coach Sam Pittman made about the Bulldogs. That's also free content. All the big room stuff we're going to make free. The recruiting stuff and exclusive interviews, we're going to put that behind the paywall. You need to be a VIP member. You should be anyway, right? You should be. You love me. I love you too. Right? Let's do business together, right? Come float. You can get out and read your Gene's Page message board stuff. But, so right out of the gate, not expected Craver to play. And if there's one position group that maybe perhaps we can absorb a little bit of attrition from an injury standpoint, maybe it is the wide receiver room. Probably opens up some more opportunities for Stonka Burnside, too. But, Kevin Coleman, Kelly Akari, we need those guys to be really good this week against an Arkansas secondary that has given up some big plays at times. And so we're going to take a few moments now and talk about our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. We'll get right into the Razorbacks. Bulldog Burger Company is your place to eat. I will probably get some food from there today. Not exactly sure what I'm going to get. I do plan to go float today too, but got to get some food from Bulldog Burger Company. It is a staple in my life because I love consistency, right? What I mean by that is, it's like I want to get what I pay for, and you get more than you pay for at Bulldog Burger Company. But I know when I need a great meal, whether it be lunch or dinner, I can get that at Bulldog Burger Company. They do a great job, too, packaging things up when you need food to go, and a lot of times that's exactly what I do. I grab my meal and I bring it back to the spot, and I eat with Dana for lunch, and it's warm. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things, right? When you get food to go, you don't want to get home and have to put it in the microwave. But they give you these great containers, keeps the food separated, and many of you are kind of OCD about that, but also, too, it keeps it warm. In the event you do have to store it, maybe their expansive portions may require you 2 sittings to finish. You've got this great container with which you've picked up your food that allows you to store it safely, conveniently, cleanly, and bring it back out and heat it back up. Good thing. I think I'm getting a smokehouse today. Again, I've been on that kick. I just, sometimes you wake up with a hankering for something, and that's kind of where I'm leaning today. The smokehouse from Bulldog Burger Company. Man, it is a magnificent meal. Find some magnificence in your life. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. Oh, and by the way, get those spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. All right, let's take a time to look at the hogs here, if I can get it out. I hadn't talked a whole lot today. But the Razorbacks, 4-3 on the year, 2-2 in SEC play. They did lose their most recent game against LSU. They are 3-1 at home, 1-1 in true away games, and then on their neutral site game, they lose to A&M there in Jerry World. Got some numbers we're going to break down as we get a little bit deeper into our preview. They open up the year with a 70-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. I think everybody expects that. Not a big shocker, right? And we broke down the quality of your schedule earlier this week, but week 2 they head to Stillwater, Oklahoma. At the time, the Cowboys were 16th in the country. It proves to be a double overtime game, and Arkansas should have won this game. They did not. The Cowboys 39-31 winners. And again, this non-conference play, in many respects, allowed them to kind of pad their stats a little bit. That's a case for everybody, right? I mean, let's just be honest about that. Everybody, you want to get out and stretch your legs a little bit, figure out who you can trust, get some playing time for some guys. But I think these first 3 weeks maybe painted an unclear picture of the Arkansas offense. 37-27 winners against UAB. So they were 2-1 headed into SEC play. They win at Auburn 24-14, a game that Auburn should have won. Then they go to Jerry World. They lose 21-17. And then they beat Tennessee, and a lot of people were thinking, you know what, maybe Arkansas is good. Maybe they are. The numbers don't show that, though. And last week, I think in many respects, we had a chance to kind of peek behind the curtain. You say, but Steve, that's kind of an outlier. But is it really? Again, you look at SEC play, and I did some numbers earlier this week, and let's do it together. I think it's actually worse than I suggested. I think it is. Let's jump on this. We talked about Arkansas averaging 17.5 points a game in SEC play. Let's double check that. 24 against Auburn, 17 against A&M, 19 against Tennessee, and then 10 against LSU. That brings us to 70. So 70 divided by 4, you didn't think you'd get a math lesson. Yeah, it was correct, 17.5. 17.5 points a game. Mississippi State's averaging 24 points a game against greater competition. Would you not argue against that? Now, we both played A&M. They scored 17 points against A&M. We did a little bit better. And granted, it was a home game, but also, too, we're an offense, too, with second-team quarterback having to call the cadence for us. I also understand that transitive properties don't really correlate in college football because football is about matchups. And as I said earlier this week, Arkansas is kind of Texas A&M light. They want to do the same things. They have a good offensive line, not as good as A&M. They have a good defensive line, not as good as A&M. They have a good running game, also not as good as A&M. And, of course, they're going to be short a player, RB1 this week. And so I think this is a very vulnerable Arkansas team. Let's kind of dig inside the numbers if we can here together and see what we can learn about this Arkansas offense. And, Sam Pittman's in his 5th year up there. And I like Sam Pittman. I do. And every time we have the opportunity to transcribe these press conferences, he just kind of reminds me of my favorite uncle. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard to root against Sam Pittman because he seems like one of us. He'd have been a great Mississippi State coach. I think, his value system and, his upbringing is very, similar to ours. But, he doesn't get up there and talk a lot of trash and things like that. And then he doesn't come across like he's better than anybody. I can see why he is a good recruiter. There is some authenticity in what he seems to do and say. But, let's break down the numbers here. We look at, scoring points per game. As, the totality of the season, they're scoring 29.7 points a game. But, again, that's skewed because of some non-conference competition. It's 70-0 against Arkansas Pine Bluff. It's no accomplishment. They're allowing 21.3. And, again, you kind of break that down, too. Look at the non-conference competition. Obviously, Oklahoma State put some points on them. UAB put some points on them. You got to think you can out-athlete UAB. But 176 first downs, 88 of those through the air, 78 on the ground. So pretty balanced in that respect. They've allowed 35 rushing first downs and 75 through the air. And again, I think this Arkansas secondary, there's some plays to be made there. Opponents have also earned 18 first downs via penalty, where Arkansas's only had 10. Look at the rushing yardage here. Let's see here. Working through here. So 1,453 yards rushing for Arkansas. They've allowed 932. And again, that front is pretty good. Passing numbers. Arkansas quarterbacks 142 of 239 with 6 interceptions. Opponents 133 for 224, also with 6 interceptions. Depth of target has been good for Arkansas, right around 8.2. Depth of target for opponents just 6.8. But 279 yards a game, allowing 218, which is in the second half of the Southeastern Conference numbers, but not terrible. They're basically there in the middle of the pack. Offensively, 3,187 yards. They've allowed 23-22. And I think it's so interesting, too, to kind of go back and look. And we talk about the numbers. The numbers are the numbers, right? I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I mean, we're this far into it. You've got a big enough sample size. You feel like you've got a good idea of what teams can do and what they're about. But when you play Arkansas Pine Bluff in week 1 and you put up 70 points, the numbers are going to be somewhat skewed. Guys, this game was 49-0 at the break. Incredible, right? And you look at the team numbers, 687 yards of offense, 408 through the air, and 279 on the ground. So you begin to think about that aspect of it, right? The games matter. We played Eastern Kentucky too, so if you're going to be fair, you got to back those out. But when you think about, they've thrown for right at 2,000 yards, and 20% of that was in one game. One game. It's been much, much different in SEC play. Much different. They only ran about 50 plays last week. LSU really, really, really strangled that Arkansas offense. And when things went off script, that's when Arkansas really struggled. All right, let's, third down percentage. That was a big problem for us last week. Arkansas has been good on third down. I mean, really good, 52%. And then they get to fourth down, and then they're converting 46% there. So when you start looking at possession plays and things like that, they found a way to get things done. They've also had a difficulty protecting the quarterback. Opponents with 17 sacks this year. We hadn't had one in forever and a day. It feels like we've got to get to the quarterback. And I think maybe the scheme here is if you're going to send pressure, you got to get home and you got to get him on the ground because Green is a dynamic runner. If you can't get him on the ground and he gets outside, he's going to make you pay for it. I think you have to make him be a quarterback. You have to make him get out there and make some things happen. 26 offensive touchdowns, 10 of those courtesy of Jackson. Again, you begin to think about that aspect of it. This is, again, a very vulnerable Arkansas team. It's going to have to go somewhere for offense. They've been very, very good in the first quarter. That's been their most productive quarter this year. And it says a lot about their offensive staff, being able to kind of scheme things out. They're outscoring opponents in the first quarter 62-27. So if you start thinking about that, if you're even after one or ahead after one, you got to like your chances a little bit. Arkansas has not been nearly as good defensively as the game has worn on. The second most profitable quarter for opponents has been the third, and the most productive quarter has been the fourth. Arkansas outscoring opponents in the fourth quarter 56-49. And no points in overtime. Yeah, significant. It is. Bulldog fans, if you know me, you know I like a free meal. I like a promo code. I like a great deal. I like to save money whenever I can. But here's the thing. I'm not going to go parade over a bed of hot coals with a pair of gasoline-soaked boxer shorts on to get a deal. It's got to be easy for me, right? And so when Mint Mobile said, hey, we'd love to partner with you guys and give wireless service for just $15 a month, I said, there's no way that's going to work, right? You got to purchase a 3-month plan. I said, you know what? It didn't make any sense to me. It turns out it's really that easy to get wireless service for $15 a month. The longest part of the process is probably going to be the time you spend on hold canceling your other provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/boneyard. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are just $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. How cool is that? Again, new customer offer. Your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/boneyard. That's mintmobile.com/boneyard. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/boneyard. There's a $45 upfront payment required. That's equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speeds are slower than above 40 gigabytes on the unlimited plan, and additional taxes, fees, and restrictions may apply. For more information, visit mintmobile.com/boneyard. It looks like they're wearing down a little bit. Again, they come out, scheme you up, find some things to exploit your weaknesses, but once you make a halftime adjustment, it's been a much different dynamic in the second half. If we can get to the half with the lead, you got to feel good about State's opportunities this week. And again, like Sam Pittman, the thing about Sam, dating back to 2020, these kids play hard for him. And that's probably the greatest compliment you can give a coach. They absolutely play hard for their coach. Xavier Sorey, number 10, leads the team with 49 tackles. Danico Slaughter has been excellent. 45 tackles for him. Also has 4 pass breakups and a pick. He was really good against LSU, even in the loss. TJ Metcalf with 37 tackles, also has 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, and 3 pass breakups. It's a guy that's around the football. You want guys that make plays when they're around the football. It's one of the things that we struggled with last week. When there were plays to be made, we didn't always make them. Nico DeVilliers spoke to the media yesterday. One of their leading defensive linemen, 15 tackles on the year, sack and a half for him, or TFL and a half for him, 1 sack. Also 3 quarterback hurries. And that's something, with Mike, we're going to have to be mindful of. Their pass rush has been pretty good. Again, the 14 sacks this year, they forced the 6 interceptions, but 20 quarterback hurries. And that number kind of jumps off the chart, and there's not a lot of consistency in how we chart quarterback hurries, like what is technically a quarterback hurry, and every school does it a little bit different. But there's no denying that they're able to kind of get in the backfield. Landon Jackson's a guy that we know well. 4.5 TFLs, couple sacks for him. Also 6 quarterback hurries, which leads the team. And a lot of that's coming from the front. It's not necessarily coming from the linebackers or these exotic blitz packages. They're good enough up front. They feel like, hey, we feel like our 4 can beat your 5. And they pin their ears back and kind of come after you. Jaquindon Jackson. And I don't need the availability report to come out to know that Jaquindon Jackson's not going to play. And let me tell you why I know that. Number one, he was helped from the field in the fourth quarter on Saturday and did not put any weight per the Arkansas broadcast on that foot. I didn't watch the game. I listened to the second half on the way home. But Jackson went down. And he is really, really good. Early on, you're thinking, man, this guy may be the best back in the Southeastern Conference. He struggled with a high ankle sprain in recent weeks, and if you've ever experienced one of those, you understand no amount of ibuprofen, no amount of taping is going to change that. It's just one of those things you just simply need to rest. But, 1,453 yards gained this year with a net of 112.35, so 1,235 yards. Nearly half of that is Jaquindon Jackson. So RB1 is out. Taylon Green is the second leading rusher. He's a quarterback, 316 yards for him. And he is an opportunistic runner. At times they will dial up some quarterback run for him, but a lot of it is when things break down. He's kind of a one-read quarterback. If you let him sit back there and just play pitch and catch, yeah, he can hurt you. But you make him think a little bit. A lot of times his first inclination is to tuck it and go. He has 316 yards on the year. So he's averaging 45 yards a game. But then you begin to think about this aspect of it. Without Jaquindon Jackson, what does that do for this Arkansas running game? Now, Sam Pittman said on Monday that he sat down with Braylon Russell and told him this was his time to shine. If Jaquindon Jackson was expected to play, you wouldn't have that conversation. Braylon Russell is a 250-pound running back, 27 carries on the year, got 127 yards, averaging just at 18 yards a game. He is expected to be RB1 this week. Rodney Hill's a guy, too, that's played a little bit, been a little bit banged up. Rashad Dubinion has been there forever and a day, and it feels like he should be a doctor by now. He's also been a little bit banged up, only played in 3 games this year, only averaging 13.3 yards per game. And so when you're averaging 176 yards a game on the ground, and you lose 84 of that, nearly half of your production, there's going to be an impact, period. It's not just about a philosophical situation or a game plan. You have to have players to execute. There's a reason Jaquindon Jackson was RB1. He's a very talented player. And again, he's been banged up in recent weeks, and that's the thing you think about. Had he been healthy in recent weeks, maybe these numbers are a little bit better. But that is a very significant, and I would venture to say perhaps they're losing their best offensive player. One could argue that perhaps Andrew Armstrong is their best offensive player, and he's been really good, averaging 107 yards a game as a receiver. Leads the Razorbacks in 45 tackles for 646 yards, just to 1 touchdown. He's a sure-handed big body guy. He's not a speedster, right? He has a long of 35 this year. He's not a guy that's going to just absolutely just rip a secondary apart. A lot of it is just technique, and a lot of it is shielding guys off, using that big body, working some back shoulder. He's a guy that can elevate. Isaiah Satanga, 7 games played this year, 25 catches, 367 yards, the 1 touchdown. And after that, it falls off considerably. Jaquindon Jackson, the 4th leading receiver. Only 3 other players have double-digit catches outside of Jackson Armstrong and Isaiah there. And so, again, there's so much of this. Isaiah Satania is a little more of a guy that can make you miss after the catch. And they have him working punt returnings and things like that as well. And so, he is a little more dynamic of a runner than Armstrong. But this is a formidable twosome. Not a ton of rotation out there, but they just don't target these guys when they get on the field. And so I think our defensive guys kind of understand kind of where things look and how things look. And Taylon Green's going to go to Armstrong to make plays because he's done it all year long. You got to find a way to kind of match that up. Field goals, Kyle Ramsey is 7 of 12. Matthew Shipley, 2 of 3. And so 9 of 10 looks like here on opponents. So field goal defense is, not something we talk about a whole lot. But the Arkansas kickers have just been okay, I guess you could say. Just okay. When you start working through that, you're 9 of 15. You'd like to be a little bit better than that. Kyle Ramsey does 58%. And many of those misses have been from 40 and beyond. So you got to avoid kind of getting them in the let them get in the red zone. Matthew Shipley, 2 of 3, and he has kicked a 51-yarder this year. Impressive, it is. Ironically, Kyle Ramsey has 2. Both of them have a 51-yarder to their credit this year. They've only attempted 2 field goals over 50 yards. They've made them both. But you start working through this stuff here, and you start looking for tendencies and things like that. And it's difficult to know, kind of what the play calling is going to look like, without Jaquindon Jackson. They're going to do what they do, just try to utilize different personnel. But we talked about, the outliers statistically. When you look at, the rushing aspect of this, last week they ran for 38 yards on 19 carries. And remember, this was a 16-10 ball game, for a stretch there. And that's on into the second half. I mean, it's not like it was 16-10 in the first quarter. And so in a one-score game, you're going to do what you do. And I think the lack of rushing attempts says a lot about, the health of Jackson. Now, Sam Pittman did say post-game they really thought they could make some plays against the LSU secondary. That's not something you hear very often. But 38 yards rushing, that's tough. But what's interesting, again, you get into SEC play, and you begin to realize you expect the sledding to be tougher because the players are bigger, faster, stronger. Let's just kind of look at this chart together here. Arkansas Pine Bluff, they ran for 279 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's a gaudy game. And you won 70-0. But nearly half of your rushing touchdowns came in one game. Against Oklahoma State, a team, again, that was considered a quality opponent. They're not doing so well now. You ran for 232 yards and 3 touchdowns. UAB, you ran for 266 and 4 touchdowns. So 15 of the 20 rushing touchdowns came in those 3 non-conference games. You look at the 4 SEC games, it's a much different deal. And again, I think Jackson's health is a factor in these discussions. They ran for 183 yards against Auburn, and that's a good number. Hey, I mean, they ran 55 times, which is a season high. And again, a game that they won, but it was a very competitive game. Couple rushing touchdowns in there. Against A&M, 30 carries for 100 yards and just a 1 touchdown. Against Tennessee in a win, 44 carries for 137. And again, last week, 19 carries. Now, I suspect we'll see that number increase considerably this week. You've got to give Green a running game to kind of avoid people from just, kind of teeing off on him. They've got to try to establish the run, and that's who Sam Pittman is. Sam Pittman's an offensive line guy. He understands the importance of run blocking. And listen, they're going to be technically sound. They're hoping to get some guys back, Kudus and others. But when you kind of look at this, the trend for the rushing game is not good. It's not good at all. And now all of a sudden you're going to take the best player out of that, And so they're going to need somebody to step up. Maybe it's Russell. Maybe it is. But man, you're asking an awful lot of that guy. That's a big guy. It's going to be a warm day. I'm sure he's a gamer. I'm sure he'll come out and play hard. But the reality of it is this is an opportunity for State to win this ball game. And I think it's probably a game the first team to 20 may win the game. I think that's how significant it is to get off to a good start if you're Mississippi State. You also want to put this game in Green's lap. You want to make him have to beat you. And he's capable of doing that. Oh, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's some scrub. But it's a much different dynamic when the running game is struggling and then the biggest part of that running game is not expected to play. Very significant in that respect. Very, very, very significant. I'm looking through these numbers here, just trying to find some anomalies and things like that we can talk about. Maybe we get into some SEC numbers here, but it's been a much different deal for Arkansas as of late. And you start looking who they've played. And listen, Tennessee and LSU are no slouch. It's a big win, to beat Tennessee. 19-14. But again, you get and you look. They rush the field there. I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe you guys feel differently, but the thing again in this game, Arkansas gets out to an early lead. It was 3-0 in the first half. And then Tennessee looks like they're going to take control, put this thing away. But in the fourth quarter, a quarter that has not been especially kind to Arkansas, they outscored Tennessee 9-0. And that's some people said, you know what, maybe this Tennessee offense isn't quite as good. And I don't know that it is. But it's so interesting when you go back and you begin to kind of break this thing down and look at this fourth quarter. And what did Sam Pittman and his offensive staff do when the game was on the line? Well, they went back to what they do. You go back to your identity. That's just kind of how life works, right? And next thing you know, they're working through here and they make the field goal. But, just kind of running through here, it's a couple passes here and there, but by and large, they ran the football. They got the benefit of a roughing the passing penalty that certainly helped. But, when it was time to put the game away, they did what teams do. They went back to what they do best. And, Green made a big pass. But by and large, they just kind of lined up and got after it, man. And, Russell was a big part of that too. Had a couple of really big plays late in that decisive drive. Ran for 24 yards and then came right back and ran for 11. And so he's a load. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to be probably the biggest back that Mississippi State has faced this year. With an offensive line that likes to run the football, with a coach that wants to run the football. And, that, again, you look at, they couldn't do what they wanted to do last weekend. They had to do some things that were kind of out of character for them. And so they didn't run it nearly as much. And so what are you going to do? You're going to go back to your bread and butter. You got to simplify things just a little bit here too. That's just the nature of coaching. But Braylon Russell is a freshman running back from Benton High School there in Benton, Arkansas. Wears number 0, 6'1", 253 pounds. It's impressive. It is. And with the guys like him, you got to get him. You got to get into the backfield. You got to fit gaps because he is more of a one-cut runner. He's not a guy that's going to have a lot of shake and bake to his game. But he's a guy that over the course of a ball game can kind of wear you out. But you got to get to him before he gets to you. The most carries he had in a game this year were against Auburn. He had 9 for 22. But again, a couple of really big gains against Tennessee. 8 carries for 62 yards. And so, we'll see what the stamina looks like. But last week, just 3 carries for 3 yards. But there's just not a lot of tape out there on this guy. But this is a physical specimen. And if Sam Pittman recruited him, and Sam Pittman knows what his skill set is and how he fits within their system. But he's going to have to be the guy this week. And it's going to present some unique challenges for Mississippi State, for sure. And, we have not been especially strong up front. I'm not breaking any news when I say that. But this week, we're going to have to be. We're going to have to be. And that's the thing you start thinking about, too, where you can't outsmart yourself either. You can't all of a sudden, really pinch in the middle and fit gaps with backers and oversell to stop the between the tackles run because the next thing Green will just pull it and be outside and you don't have containment, So that's the things you got to think about. You're going to have to be pretty balanced in what you do, but we're going to need those front 3 and 4 guys. That front 7 is going to have to be really good, but you can't just overcommit. What you really want to do is win on first and second down, and then hopefully you can put yourself in a third and medium, third and long, and where the running game is not nearly as significant. But if you start letting them get in 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2 situations, a big back like Russell is going to make a difference. But that's what we expect to see. That's what we expect to happen. And I'll tell you right now, I expect State to win the football game. I do. And I've been very honest with you guys. I've picked against State now for a month now. I think on the road, there are a lot of significant things. It's so hard to win on the road in the Southeastern Conference. So I ran some numbers for you. In the Sam Pittman era, that dates back to 2020, because I heard somebody say recently, one of these media events, that Arkansas has been good on the road. That's just not true. Since 2020, under the direction of Coach Sam Pittman, Arkansas is 6-13 on the road. In their last 2 years, they're 2-4 on the road. So 6-13. And granted, we run most of the numbers for many of our contemporaries in the Southeastern Conference. The numbers are going to be comparable, right? But no, they have not been good on the road under Sam Pittman. And then I got to thinking, well, what about the brunch kickoff, right? The regular season, I didn't include their game against Penn State because it's a bowl game. It's different, right? It's not a week-to-week deal. But over the course of a season, what does the 11 a.m. kick mean during the Sam Pittman era? Well, how about 4-12? And that includes home games. Home games and road games. They played at 11 a.m. or 11:30 or 11:45 before noon. The brunch kickoff under Sam Pittman, Arkansas, is 4-12. And one of those wins came back in 21 against Arkansas Pine Bluff. So again, haven't been good on the road, haven't been good with pre-noon kickoffs. So let's do the correlation here. How have they done in road games that kick off before noon? I'm so glad you asked. Well, they're 2-6. In 2020, they go 0-1. 2021, 0-2. They go 1-1 in 22 and 23, and their 2024 record is 0-1. The Oklahoma State was an 11 a.m. road game, or 11:30, pre-noon road game. And so those are your numbers. So the numbers in that respect, even if everybody's healthy and just kind of working through the course of a season, they have not been good on the road. They've not been good at 11, and they have certainly not been good in road games at 11. True story. Now, one could argue and say, you know what, Steve, hey, 11 a.m. kicks, that typically means you're not playing well. Well, you typically also means you're playing a team that's not playing well. Right? So let's not poke holes in the data. The data is the data. So when you take the numbers and the trends, and again, we've got a big enough sample size to understand they're not good on the road, they're not good at 11, and not good at 11 a.m. road games, or pre-noon, whatever. And then you're missing one of your most explosive offensive playmakers. And on the flip side, because I'm not just expecting Arkansas to come in here to lose the game, I'm expecting Mississippi State to win the game. I think State has some opportunities to make some plays against Arkansas. And I do think this is going to be a lower scoring game, which certainly should help Mississippi State. I just don't think they're going to be nearly as good offensively without Jaquindon Jackson. And I think even the most loyal Arkansas fan, what they may not admit it publicly, feels the same way. It's going to be a much tougher dynamic, and you're hoping that this freshman from Benton, Arkansas can come in here and be a hero. It changes the dynamic of that offense. Jaquindon Jackson's a guy that can run between your tackles and really hurt you on the edge. I don't know. If Russell's going to be able to really work on the edge as much. And there'll be some toss game and some guards pulling and things like that. They'll do their best to get him outside paired up on defensive backs. But I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, certainly for Arkansas. And I think if State can get some separation and kind of negate the run play, I think it could be a very good Saturday in Starkville for Mississippi State fans. All right, it's time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. Blair Chandler is my friend, your friend, our collective friend in the mortgage industry. Blair's number, 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. You can call or text, no matter what's happening in your life, right? 23 years of experience in the industry. Blair is a guy that can get you to the closing table when so many others can't. There is know-how in the Blair Chandler operation. Visit the website, closewithblair.com, C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com, Whether you're looking for a game day condo, which could be more affordable than you think, or your first home or your next home, Blair Chandler is the resource for you, can be your advocate with underwriting. It can be a very intimidating process. You need somebody that can kind of hold your hand through it and kind of put your loan together, kind of construct it in a way that will get an approval. Yeah. We've had several Boneyard listeners that have closed loans with Blair. Perhaps you're the next one. Maybe you need to reach out. Maybe you think, hey, this is the first big adult decision that I've made. Maybe I've gotten married. Maybe I'm going to get married. I want to put some roots in the ground. Rather than throw your money away on renting, you can build some equity and a new home. Again, it's Blair Chandler at 601-500-2344. He's a bulldog, too, through and through. He rides the wave just like you do. I like to keep business in the family whenever we can. Okay. I tell you guys all the time that occasionally somebody will throw something in my direction when it comes to this list. And our friend Matt Callahan from Houston, Mississippi. The Callahans have had a tough year this year. Spoke about, they had some unexpected tragedy in their lives early this year. And we love them. Used to do book signings at their place there in Houston. And, before they decided to, go back into other industry. But they've been in my life for a long time. And Matt came by and got a book this weekend when I was at Bookmart Cafe. And Matt apparently was a big fan of our Firefall list. And so Matt messages via the Facebook Messenger. After listening to the top 10 list last night on the Boneyard of the band Firefall, it got me thinking about another 1970s rock band I used to listen to with my dad, Dr. Hook. Have you done a top 10 with those guys? We have not. They were originally called Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, and they shortened it to Dr. Hook after a couple albums. Matt also goes on to say, I'm loving the dude, too. A lot of historical facts as a bulldog I never knew. Thanks for writing this book, Steve. Hell State. Well, hell state to you, Matt. And so we're going to do Dr. Hook on today's show. And again, it's kind of like Firefall. You know some of these songs. And they kind of became an adult contemporary act later in their catalog. They have released tons of albums, a lot of live albums. So there's like 4 or 5 different collections, their greatest hits album. So we've got a lot to work with here. But number 10, we're going with Better Love Next Time. It's pretty appropriate titling when you consider the lyrical content. At some point we all get in these bad relationships. You got to get out of them. You do. You should. A lot of people waste their lives away trying to make a relationship work that can't work because of the fact that we're worried about our life changing. It'll be uncomfortable. It's kind of like, you know what, I'll just kind of stick with what I've got. Now, I'm also a proponent, too. Don't always assume the grass is greener on the other side. Real quick story about that, too. And the gender doesn't matter, but in this situation, this was a friend's situation, friend's wife. And, they were all great friends, and one of them got divorced, and then all of a sudden, we're dating, and we're taking all these great girls' trips, and then the second friend got divorced too. So now of the circle of friends, 2 of the 3 are divorced, and there became some peer pressure. Oh, you're missing out. So my friend's wife left him too. And then, all of a sudden, the other 2 friends got remarried. And then she was left, no longer with the girls' trips, no longer with all the fun things to talk about. Things change. So be mindful of what you do and think it through. Think it through. All things, good or bad, will pass if we let them. But I'm not a proponent for staying in a toxic relationship. Just so my feelings. Number 9, the second single, and it was also a hit for them. It's a track maybe you're not quite as familiar with. It's Carry Me, Carry. That's your number 9 track today. Number 8, a song that you have probably heard a lot if you were a Gen Xer, kind of growing up. It's All the Time in the World. Great track, And again, it's one of those things, too, you think about your relationship and things like that, How great is it when you don't really have any plans? You just kind of get out and say, let's go do something. You don't always have to have a plan. Sometimes the impromptu trip. Maybe you run down to the coast, go take in a show, eat at one of those fine restaurants down there. Maybe you head to the mountains. Number 7, great track, man. And this was a little more modernized when they had a little more money behind the band. Production value on this track is super good. And, I don't know if you could record this song today. I guess it depends on your political affiliation. It seems there's a lot of that goes around these days, that they're double standards. But it's Baby Makes Her Blue Jeans Talk. That's number 7. Number 7. I could opine about this for a while, but I'm not going to, because I love you all, and I don't want it to be weird. Number 6, Sylvia's Mother. This is a really fun song, right? It's a fun song, and we used to have payphones, and that's part of the story here. 40 cents for the next 3 minutes, that sort of stuff. And anyway, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, silly song, and there was a lot of that early on in the catalog for Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show. But Sylvia's Mother, great track. All right, number 5, another silly one. It's Freakin' at the Freakers Ball. There's a lot to this one. There's a lot to unpack. I'll let you do it yourself. But it's basically about somebody kind of getting into the lifestyle, or a lifestyle that they're somewhat unfamiliar with, and they find that it kind of takes, they have a good time, all the best sadist. And this song was written back in the 70s, 50 years old. But a lot of silliness with it, and I think sometimes music can be that. Music doesn't always have to be profound. All right, so we get to the top 4, and I think most everybody would agree that knows the Dr. Hook catalog. These are the top 4 songs. We may disagree on the order, but here we go. Number 4, it's Sexy Eyes. And there was a little more of an R&B flair to this, this album, and kind of the direction of the band. They used to be really silly, and then they began kind of writing some hits. It was really, an interesting time in music. But Sexy Eyes, huge hit. Number 3, it's Sharing the Night Together. Great one. And it's like the first time, right? The first time that she stays over. Maybe you could stay all night if you're so inclined. If you're down with that, maybe we can have breakfast. So it's not an X-rated song, but it is some adult content in this. But it's a happy-go-lucky relationship, romantic type track. Number 2, profound words here. When you're in love with a beautiful woman. That's number 2. You watch your friends. You do. There's a lot involved with all that too, and not everybody's man enough to be with a beautiful woman. You think this is the way to go? I think it's kind of good to find beauty in who you're with. But a lot of young men aspire. It's like, hey, one day, I'm going to date one of these Instagram models, and that she may prove to be a little faster than you are, right? But the reality of it is that all women are beautiful in some respects, right? I mean, some more beautiful than others, But I think the fairer sex is, there's a lot to like about them, and I don't just mean from a physical standpoint, their physical beauty. I think I heard a guy say this one time, like in a relationship, whatever you give a woman, she increases. You buy, you go out and make the money to buy groceries, she'll make you a meal. You buy her a house, she'll make you a home. There are a lot of things about women that I truly admire and respect. But this is an interesting song. When you're in love with a beautiful woman, right? It can be a stressful undertaking. Not everybody's built for it. It's true. Got to be a modicum of trust for sure. But number 1. And when you listen to the later part of the catalog, if you listen to songs 4, 3, and 2, and then you heard number 1, you would say it's not even the same band. In some respects, it wasn't the same band, even though the singer kind of continued. The songwriting changed. But this is a clever song. It's the cover of the Rolling Stone, number 1. And I used to want to write for Rolling Stone, before they basically became a political rag. When it was just about music. That was one of the aspirations I had. Man, I'd love to write for the Rolling Stone. Love to sit down, do one of those great interviews with the rock star and kind of get inside the stories behind the songs, right? I'd love to do that. But that was kind of a, a rite of passage for bands that had made it. It's like no matter what I've accomplished, I've never been on the cover of the Rolling Stone. I'm going to buy my mom 5 copies if I ever get on the cover of the Rolling Stone. And this song actually kind of became the genesis of the Cameron Crowe movie Almost Famous. Because when the song came out, Rolling Stone sent, a young writer to go cover the band, because they were so incredibly overwhelmed and flattered that this hit song was about their magazine. And across the pond, they wouldn't play the song because they thought that it was an advertisement, basically, for the Rolling Stone. True story. And so they had to kind of remix it a little bit. And but anyway, it's again, it's a fun song, and again, it's about a great time in music. And I love the discussion at the beginning. He talks about we're all rock stars. Well, that sounds like us. It's a fun song, and this is a fun band. And again, as they matured and made some money and got some investment from their record company, things got a little more polished. I kind of like the earlier stuff. I like how silly it all was. But the cover of the Rolling Stone. And maybe you've heard that song and didn't know who sang it. Maybe you've heard people talk about that, didn't understand the reference. I would encourage you, if you don't listen to any of these songs, listen to that one. If you're only going to listen to one, listen to that one. Dr. Hook and The Medicine Show, and eventually it became Dr. Hook. But super, super, super band. And Matt, thanks for the suggestion. Glad that we could get it done for you pretty quickly. And also, too, again, it's always good to see the Callahans. And I've written every one of their books, signed them to the Callahans. And it's good to get the review, too, And I don't know if I shared with you guys, but I went yesterday and delivered some books to Dudy Noble's nieces in Batesville, Mississippi. They did a short little video for me, kind of promoting it. But, it's just so incredible to me to have the blessing of the Noble family. Like, I would not have even written this book had I not had their blessing. And that was the first thing that I did. The first trip that I made was to go visit with Francis Amos and Mitzi Steele there in Batesville. They're sisters, and their mother was the sister of Dudy Noble. And they shared a lot of great stories with me. Yesterday I got to read a letter, because all this has kind of stirred up some nostalgia within the family, right? And so everybody's kind of dug up some family heirlooms. There's a letter from William Alexander Noble, who was Dudy's father, when Dudy was out in San Francisco competing in the Panama Exposition, which was the AAU NAFL champions. We didn't have the Olympics that year. Isn't it weird to think that Dudy Noble would have been an Olympic hopeful had they had the Olympics? But instead, in World War I, the games were scheduled to be in Munich, Germany. They were a little bit busy over there. So we didn't have the Olympics, but Dudy Noble was a potential Olympian as a sprinter in the 100 and the 220-yard dash. Set conference records here. And but sitting with them, and I had a chance to read this letter. Will writes the letter, and he begins it with, my dear old boy, And then about 5 times through the letter, Will says, do your best to win, do your best to win, do your best to win, do your best to win. And goes on to talk about God and how the relationship, that, hey, I'm going to pray for you every day and ask God to bless your efforts and things like that. And it was very interesting to hold that letter in my hands and, mailed all the way from Learned, Mississippi to San Francisco, and I don't know how long the event went, but it is covered in the Dude, but it's very special to me. And my wife tells me all the time, she says, I know how proud you are of this book, and I am exceptionally proud of this book. It's not to say that I didn't make a mistake. I'm human, and no matter how much editing we do, there's always going to be something, right? It's just, that's the beauty of the first edition. But to be able to go back, basically, 10 months or so, 11 months maybe, since this process began, and to be able to deliver those books to Dudy Noble's family was very special to me, very, very special. And Francis and Mitzi have been incredible to me. I feel like they're part of my family now. And it's one of those things, too, you think about, what do you want to do with your life? And I don't mean in the Twisted Sister, I want to rock video way. What do you want to do? with your life. And I don't mean your chosen vocation, and I don't mean, maybe your religious background or anything like that. But what do you want to do? And one of the things that I want to do is I want to do as much good as I can. And to see their excitement yesterday as I handed them those books, and it was palpable. It's a real thing. And I told them, I said, I know when we first got together, you probably weren't sure what to make of me. And Frances paid me a great compliment. She said, well, I knew when you left that you were a serious writer. And we've maintained a friendship, of course. I've been in contact with them. I have to do some fact-checking at times with them. And they have been absolutely incredible to me. And yesterday is one of those days that I will remember for the rest of my life, to be able to present them with those books. It's a book that probably should have been written 50 years ago. You've heard me say that on the show before. It is my honor to write that book, not just for the Noble family, but for all of you. I think it's a keepsake that you will treasure forever. I think it's one of those things, too, that if you love Mississippi State, I think you're going to learn a lot about Mississippi State. And that's one of the things that Matt said, too, that maybe I read that to you, maybe I didn't. But a lot of historical facts as a Bulldog you didn't know. That's my job in all of this, to educate and inform and to entertain. And I can promise you, I put everything that I have into this book, absolutely everything. From a writing standpoint, from a research standpoint, from an editing standpoint. Of course, on Friday I got to present Dr. Keenum with a copy. And those things are special to me. And it doesn't cost those people anything, to give me an audience and, allow me to present them with a book. But I've been thinking about that for a long time, that I wanted to present Dr. Keenum, with the first official copy. And so the very first box that I opened, I grabbed that book and I set it to the side and I said, this is going to be Dr. Keenum's. And so that's very special to me too. And it's those things sometimes, like I remember when I wrote Flim Flam, I was so allergic to the change. And what I mean by that is because I'm from small town Mississippi, and it's like I dealt a lot with imposter syndrome. It's like, am I getting out of my lane? I mean, what am I doing here? And the truth of the matter is, I was scared to fail. I'd always wanted to write books, and I was scared. What if I make a big mistake and I get sued here, right? What if I'm wrong? Right? I mean, there's nothing to stop anybody from filing a lawsuit against you. I mean, they don't need any evidence to do so. I mean, there's a reason lawsuits get thrown out all the time, because they don't have any merit. But it wasn't just that aspect of it. It's because I wondered to myself, can I do this? Can I put a book together that not only will sell, but more importantly, will it make sense? Will it achieve its desired purpose? And it changed my life. It did. And I've shared with you guys before, probably every day for the 2 weeks leading up to its release, I wanted to vomit every day just because I was so resistant to change. And sometimes we have to give ourselves a break and aspire for something greater than we are today. It's true. Now I've written 7 books. And I walk into Book Martin Cafe and I got a whole section up there. And I walk in there and it's just, I look at it sometimes, like I took a picture and I put it on Facebook too. I had to introduce the dude to the rest of the family. These things are important to me, extremely important to me. And I want to write things that are important to you. And I think the dude, in many respects, accomplishes that because many of these stories have never been told and others are over 100 years old. And so I don't want to turn this into just an advertisement for the dude, but you can go to DutyNobleBook.com and you can order that and all my sports titles there. But I think it's important to understand that you too can change your life. You too can accomplish great things, and I still think I've got some more greatness in front of me. I think in many respects I'm just beginning. But if this proves to be the last book that I ever write, and I gotta hope that's not the case, but if it is, I believe I've given my best effort. And that's so many times in my life when I think about that aspect of it. When I was a coach or I was a player or a student, I rarely gave my best effort. I called it my best effort. There's a lot of people out there that talk about winning championships that have never done it. A lot of people talk about a championship standard and they've never accomplished much of anything. They've been pretty mediocre. Those are buzzwords. We want to be elite. We want to do this. We want to do that. It all starts with us. It's not about somebody else holding us to a standard. It's us elevating the standards in which we want to operate. It's about what we think of ourselves. And as I've shared with you guys, I heard this in an AA meeting years ago, there are two kinds of people in the world. Those that think they're going to make it and those that think they don't. The funny thing is, both of them are right. And there are a lot of people out there that think they want to write a book that really don't have any business writing a book. And what I mean by that is they don't have a story. That doesn't mean they shouldn't go through the process and do something incredibly cathartic. I meet with people all the time that have a tremendous amount of pain, a lot of pain in their lives. And sometimes just writing it down and getting it out, kind of excavating it from our soul, is a good thing. Even if you never share it with anybody else, some of the most profound things I've ever written were just for me. I don't share them. It's just things that I'm working through. Writing is healing for me. Speaking is healing for me. And so my hope is that you're a person out there that is struggling, that you have a creative outlet of your own. And if you don't, maybe you should find one. You know, the old paint by number thing. You know, Dana and I have gone and done that. You know, the old, I can't think what they call it, but you go paint a picture, have somebody direct you. I found painting to be very therapeutic too. I'm not as good as it I'd like to be. But it's nice to be able to focus on something and kind of get out of my own head, right? And that's what writing and painting and all this other stuff does for me, is to be able to allow me to kind of get out of my head and focus on something creative. And then all of a sudden you get to the end of it and you're like, man, look at what we created. And there's a sense of accomplishment in that. You know, it's like I think about people that, I don't like working in the yard. There's some other people that do. And my dad was one of those people. You know, he got the private garden award or something like that. You know, that kind of stuff doesn't matter to me. The yard of the month club, that kind of stuff. You know, those things, that means absolutely nothing to me. But for other people that get out there and it's artistry, what they do with their yard. And I'm always so impressed. I'm just not motivated to follow suit. But find something that you love that makes you feel better and makes life a little more livable, right? It's not just about watching Netflix and paying bills and raising kids. That's all part of life. It's not the purpose of life. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. I will be at Campus Bookmart this Friday from 3 to 5 to sign some books. We were hoping to do something Saturday, but with the early kick, not going to be able to do that. But I will be there for all of you early arrivals, 3 to 5 at Campus Bookmart this Friday. And the dude is here. Yeah. It's not just the dude you're looking for. You're looking for Mississippi State merch. You're looking for apparel, looking for knickknacks, things to make your fandom known, whether you're decorating your office, your fan cave, anything of that nature. You can find everything you need at Campus Bookmart. It is an incredible place to do business, and it's run by people that love Mississippi State. I encourage you, as always, support a Starkville business when you can, rather than some big national conglomerate. You know, like Amazon. I mean, sometimes you got to get things on Amazon you can't get locally, but you can get great Mississippi State merch in person when you come to town, or you can order online at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we got a phrase that pays for you, BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than 75 bones, absolutely incomplete. Campus Bookmart. Okay. Tomorrow night, I'll be back out at the pitch. Your SEC leading Mississippi State soccer team has already matched the school record in wins in a season. We are 13-1 on the year. We won 10 games in a row. We are undefeated at home and, of course, undefeated in conference play. The one loss came against Wake Forest that is ranked just ahead of us in the national rankings. We're third again this week. Got a couple of games coming up this week. Hopefully we'll be recapping a big win on Friday. But last home game of the regular season, Thursday evening, I encourage you to come out and be a part of that, even if it's your first time. You know, we win the Magnolia Cup last Friday, again, 5 consecutive times. What a great tribute to our seniors to have never lost to Ole Miss. It's great. All right, 6:30 p.m., at the Mississippi State Soccer Complex. Again, we encourage you to come out. You can even watch online. It's available streaming the SEC Network Plus, which means the ESPN app. But there's nothing quite like being there. And again, could be a historic moment as we earn the 14th win for the first time in school history. Now, on Sunday, we'll be headed down to Texas A&M. That was originally scheduled to be the regular season finale, but next week we will play South Carolina. Still waiting on the details of that. That was postponed due to the complications of Hurricane Helene. But we could actually clinch an SEC championship on Sunday, which gives your good friend and host some decisions to make. All right, looking at the SEC schedule for Thursday evening, South Carolina ranked 22nd, and when we do have to go up there, we're going to have to bring our best effort. I mean, this is a South Carolina team that's good. South Carolina is at Tennessee tomorrow. Vanderbilt at LSU. Georgia is at Auburn. Auburn doing a good job. They always do. It's where Neil Armstrong. That's where Coach Armstrong came from. James Armstrong made the trip over from Auburn. And, of course, Kentucky's at State. Texas A&M at Arkansas. What a week for Texas A&M. They play at number 5 Arkansas and then host number 3 Mississippi State. Big win for us if they could find a way to win at Arkansas. Arkansas keeping a lot of pressure on Mississippi State. Florida's at Alabama. Missouri at Texas, and then Ole Miss at Oklahoma. Texas and Oklahoma kind of having an unceremonious welcome to the Southeastern Conference. But, we kind of throw them a gift. They got to play Ole Miss. But as it stands today, Arkansas and Mississippi State are tied with 21 conference points. You get 3 points for a win. We have 7. Arkansas also has 7. You get no points for a loss. We have none of those in conference play. Arkansas has 1, and you get 1 point for the draw. So we'd love for A&M to maybe get a draw. We'd love to win. But to get a draw and us to get a dub would really set up some pretty big things. Of course, Arkansas, barring some unforeseen circumstance, is going to complete their regular season slate this weekend. And so they'll wait around for us. So we could potentially clinch if we get some help. But if we continue winning, we don't need any help, right? 3 games left in a regular season slate. State could win all 3 and have 30 conference points. Arkansas, the best that they can hope for, is 27. So we don't need any help, but man, it'd be great to get some and have an opportunity to clinch. Razorbacks have won 3 in a row since losing that game in Starkville. Many of you turned out for that. Largest crowd to ever watch a soccer match on the Mississippi State campus. First time we'd ever hosted a number 1. Only the second time we played a number 1. Auburn is currently in second place alone. Technically, that's third. They have 15 points, and so it would take something incredible for them to win the SEC, but they are a very formidable opponent. They will have an opportunity to play deep into the NCAA tournament. They did get a draw their last match, and there's South Carolina just behind them with 14 points. But, of course, the Gamecocks, a game off the pace because they haven't played that game against us. And so that's interesting, right? Texas 13, Georgia 12, Andy also with 12, Kentucky with 10 points. They are 10-2-4 on the year. On the road, it's been a lot more difficult for them, 2-2-1, and just 2-2-4 in Southeastern Conference play. Missouri also 10 points, A&M with 10, Alabama with 8, Tennessee with 8, LSU 7, Florida 6, Oklahoma 4, and then Ole Miss 1, dead last in the conference. And so you start shaking this thing up here, and Oklahoma, of course, with a loss, would be tied for last place with Ole Miss. Of course, we'd love to see Oklahoma win this game, and then Florida would be 4 points ahead of Ole Miss. So Ole Miss could also, it's an important match for Ole Miss because they could just about wrap up last place in the conference. That's always great. It's like I love these people that say, I love them in a way, and I don't know, maybe that's not the right way to say it. They want all the state schools to be great. I don't. I like it when we are competing for a conference championship and Ole Miss is competing for the cellar. That's what I like. People are like, well, Steve, wasn't 14 fun? We're all, rooting for each other. No, we weren't rooting for each other. I was rooting for Mississippi State and rooting against Ole Miss. My two favorite teams are Mississippi State and whoever plays Ole Miss. And so Thursday night, I'll be pulling for Oklahoma and for Mississippi State, and then we'll see what the weekend brings. But that's kind of where things sit right now. And little did we know, beginning of this year, that we would spend so much time talking about soccer. But many of you are Mississippi State fans first, and you're not necessarily sports specific in that respect. But I've had a lot of fun covering these ladies. And the thing that I've said on the show before, they have an incredible love for each other. They don't care who scores, right? They don't care. They just want to win. And it's fun to be around that culture. And Coach Armstrong and the entire group, they're getting more media coverage these days. They deserve it. They do. But soccer's a great game. I loved it my whole life. And I have always wanted Mississippi State to be good in soccer. Now we are great in soccer. And again, you kind of work through this. We've already set a school record for SEC wins in a year. We've now tied the school record for overall wins in a year. So you get a dub Thursday night, and in front of what hopefully will be a huge crowd, you're going to see history. Because every SEC win, every time we win, just adds to it. But also, too, the overall, to be 14-1 with 2 games to play, it's incredible. And then, of course, you've got the conference tournament coming up down in Pensacola. That's going to go November 3rd through the 10th. It'll be a week-long event. But, the bracket will make sense, and State won't have to play right out of the gate. But nevertheless, we got to keep winning ball games. But how cool would it be to celebrate an SEC championship? That would be a super cool thing. And I've thought about that. It's like, if Arkansas loses Thursday night, I may have to make that trip down to College Station, Texas, because I would want to be there to see Mississippi State clinch its first ever SEC championship in soccer. I think that would be very special. So something we got to work out with the wife, right? We'll see. Because after Kentucky, the last 2 games will be on the road. So we could clinch at A&M or we could clinch at South Carolina. But the bottom line is we have to keep winning. Have to keep winning. So, again, if you can't make it to town Thursday night, we do encourage you to watch as you stream it through the ESPN app. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle by far. If you're bringing a large group to town, rather than go out there and get 5 hotel rooms and waste a bunch of money, and it's not nearly as nice a place, and it's not nearly as convenient. Because, everybody gets a hotel room. Well, if we want to be together, we all got to go sit around in a lobby somewhere, sit around in a bar at a lounge and have somebody interloping on your conversation. It's just not nearly as fun. But think about this for a second. You can have everybody under one roof. And if you're like me and your kids are getting older, I'm an empty nester these days, it's a very, very rare occurrence. So we get everybody under one roof. And sadly, a lot of times when we do, it's because there's been, something negative that's happened. We have a death in the family or something, and everybody says, man, we need to get together more under better circumstances. But then we don't. Well, we get so busy, we get back to all of our lives and all the things that we're wrapped up in, and we don't make time for each other. I'm encouraging you to make time for yourself and those you love, and rent out the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, whether it be a midweek event, maybe you're bringing a work crew to town, or maybe you're just thinking, you know what, I just want to get my family together. And maybe I'm going to do that when it's not a ball game weekend, so we can go, frequent our favorite restaurants. Or maybe you want to cook. Full-service kitchen, the wet bar, that great back porch area, the fire pit area, neatly positioned just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. And so if you want to come out and go to a sporting event, you can do that too. You can do your tailgating right there. There's just so many opportunities there that maybe you didn't know existed. So Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, and when you do, their Facebook page is going to pop up, and you can peruse the pictures of all the fine amenities that are available to you and your guest. And also going to be some booking options. You can book through Airbnb, you can book through VRBO, but you can also book through Evolve. And if you book through the Evolve website, I can save you 10%. Promo code BSR10, BSR10, the number 10, gets you 10% off your stay. And how cool is that to have the opportunity to save some money at a great place just by picking the right booking option and listening to the show. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle. All right, Sam Penman met with the media again this morning, and a few things that we'll share, because, we live in the big maroon bubble sometimes, right? We do. It's kind of how things are. You're not quite as acutely aware of what's happening around the conference until you get ready to go play them. So let's take a quick look here. Our friend Trey Biddy, I'll be on his show Thursday, and they're probably not going to like my pick. But the first availability report is out tonight, 7 p.m. I'll be at Dog Talk 2 this evening. So we had a good crowd last weekend at Dog Talk at Walk-Ons. And so if you're in town, maybe for business, or perhaps you live here, or maybe you just think, hey, I think I'll ride over there and check it out, have a nice meal, and listen to Jeff Lebby and some of the players talk, this could be a good option for you. But the availability report will come out basically during the show. Arkansas kind of got a preview today. Cornerback Jalen Braxton and kicker Kyle Ramsey are both expected to be listed as out for Saturday's game. Jaquindon Jackson has an ankle, and as I disclosed earlier in the show, we don't expect him to play. And now Jaquindon Jackson expected to be listed as doubtful. He's not playing. Okay, he's not playing. Running back Rodney Hill is expected to be probable. Probably got to get him ready to go. And Braylon Russell, of course, expected to be the dude this week. Sam Pittman said, we've got to take pressure off our quarterback and our wide receivers and our offensive line, for that matter, on third down. Every time you turn around and hand it off, you want to have success. We have not necessarily done that the latter part of the last 2 or 3 games. We're trying to get it back. We know that's a big, vital part of us having opportunities to win, kind of as we discussed earlier. They're going to come out and try to establish the running game with Russell kind of leading the charge there. And the offensive line, they're kind of in a flux, I guess, in some respects, a couple of positions there. They've moved some guys around. Of course, Patrick Kudus is back. Amarian Harris and Keyshawn Blackstock out there kind of moving, getting some things together. We'll see. But it's going to be an interesting ball game. And, I went back and transcribed all the things that the Arkansas players had to say yesterday. And, of course, you can read that in what the Razorbacks are saying about the Bulldogs. It's a free feature over at genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports. And so I thought there was one thing very, very interesting about some of the comments. They were asked a little bit about, do you have a little bit, maybe revenge factor? And maybe that wasn't exactly the word they used. When you think about last year's game, well, they feel like they should have won that game, and I'm sure they do, right? Everybody says, well, they had that fumble that got negated that was returned for a touchdown. Well, we also had a Mike Wright touchdown that was negated on a penalty that was very questionable. I think everybody kind of saw that for what it was. But it's interesting to think about that aspect of it, that they feel like they should have won the game, and everybody does. And I remember walking out of that stadium, and I told the lovely bride, I said, it feels so good to get a win against these guys. It does, especially up here. Of course, my son lives in Rogers, Arkansas, so I'm always happy for them. But wide receiver Andrew Armstrong, when I asked him about last year's loss to State, he goes, I don't remember that game. And it was not a great exhibition of football for either team by any stretch of the imagination. But we found our way to go get a win. And there's a lot of discussion, too, is this a trap game? Is it a trap game for Arkansas? Now, routinely, you think about that being ranked teams, but I think Arkansas's mindset about this is really good. Every one of these guys, it didn't matter if it was Larry Worth or offensive lineman Addison Nichols, they're all just like, hey, we're going to play everybody the same. Our preparation doesn't change. You got to respect everybody in the Southeastern Conference. So they're saying the right things, but you wonder if they're believing the right things. Now, they have a lot of motivation. Again, they feel like they should have won last year. They feel like their season may be slipping away a little bit. And again, when you look at their schedule, you begin to realize, in many respects, they have to kind of look at this game as their Super Bowl. We broke that down a little bit earlier in the week, but let's revisit the topic just for a second here. if you're Sam Pittman, you have to throw everything you've got at Mississippi State. Absolutely everything you have at Mississippi State. You're going to host Ole Miss next week. And listen, we've enjoyed the fact that Ole Miss has had some struggles as of late, and the worse that Kentucky loss looks, the better it is, right? But this is a good Ole Miss team. They should be fresh, coming off an open date, probably get some guys back. And, of course, they've had 2 weeks to kind of, chew on that bitter loss, to LSU. Again, a game that they feel like they should have won. And, one could argue they should have. Fourth down conversion, and then you get to overtime, and, but that LSU defense against Arkansas and Ole Miss in that fourth quarter, and certainly in the overtime period, was relentless. But I would say, I expect Ole Miss to go to Arkansas and win. Historically, they have not done well in Fayetteville. And so it's just like you begin to kind of run the math here. We talk about the trends and, pre-noon kicks, road games under Pittman. Ole Miss has not done well in Fayetteville. But as we sit here today, I would say, Ole Miss should probably win that game. And then Texas rolls in there. Then that'll be a packed crowd. There'll be a lot of people. For many of them, first time they've seen Texas and Arkansas play a game. That's probably a loss. Louisiana Tech should be a win. Then you got to go to Missouri. And that hadn't been a great venue for Arkansas. And so if you're trying to get the postseason, and they certainly are, and they say, hey, we still have an opportunity to get to the postseason, and I think certainly Sam Pittman needs that to happen. I don't think there's any question. They have a losing record this year, and I still don't know that 6-6 is enough to do it. A lot of people say, oh, yeah, 6-6, they love Sam. I love Sam too. But, they're not going to just sit back and be content with, not making bowl games. Not going to happen. As much as I like Sam too, I'd have Sam over for a coffee. But, guys, Missouri, all-time against Arkansas, do you know the numbers on this? You probably don't. They played 15 times, and Missouri has won 11. 11-4 all-time against the Arkansas Razorbacks, including the last 2. And, they joined the league years ago. But, guys, so you start running the numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Missouri has won 7 of 8 against Arkansas. 7 of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. I apologize. This is an impromptu adjustment. 5, 6. So Arkansas has never won in Columbia, Missouri. Now that 1906 game has no bearing on what happens now. But those are the things that the media will bring up. You guys have never won in Como. And then they've owned the series. And so I'm confident at this point Arkansas is going to come out feeling like they absolutely have to win this week against Mississippi State to give themselves an opportunity to get to a bowl game. You got to get 2 to get bowl eligible, and you feel like, hey, we should be able to get Louisiana Tech at home. But Mississippi State is the only unranked SEC team remaining on our schedule, and we have to go down there. So they're not going to play it safe. You best believe we will absolutely get their best shot. I just think their best shot is absolutely mitigated by the fact that Quentin Jackson is not going to play. And then all of a sudden you're going to put a freshman in that situation and say, hey, go get us a W, big guy. You're asking an awful lot. That's a lot of pressure on a young running back. And he may be up for the challenge, but we'll see. But, working through some of these comments through the media opportunities for Arkansas this week, it's been very interesting. And I remember, a couple years ago, we go up there and, it's incredible. Like they said it was their Super Bowl, and we missed 3 field goals. And at the end of the game, they rushed the field, and it's craziness. And they act like that it was a Super Bowl. They had special decals for the helmets, and it was all a big deal. And we've had some good games against Arkansas in recent years, but this is one we got to get. Last year, one of the most anemic offenses in school history. And we found a way to go win the ball game because the defense played so well, and they had KJ. Our defense was absolutely lights out last year, and I don't know that we need them to be lights out this week, but we need them to play at least as well as they did last week, but even better on third down. We got to get off the field. And you think about Green. Again, even Sam Pittman said himself, you got to take some pressure off the quarterback. We have to put some pressure on the quarterback. And we can't just let him get out there and improvise, because he is a guy that's incredibly athletic, and he can get outside the pocket when things break down. He can be a plus runner, but also, too, when you look at the scramble drill, he's a guy you can't cover forever. And coverage hadn't been great for us. But, we're going to have to find a way to kind of get him off the field. And, again, I think the most important thing that we have to do, and we'll talk about some of these things on Friday, but, we got to get off to a good start. But we also got to win on first down. We have to win on first down. They're going to line up and hand it off, and they're going to try to get 3 or 4 yards and then kind of reassess on second down and try to get themselves in a third and short situation. And with that big running back and an offensive line that has been very well coached, that's going to be the game plan. And so I do expect a lower scoring game just because of the fact I do think they're going to run the football and do their best to limit our possessions. I mean, again, they had 50 plays last week. You can't win a Southeastern Conference game with 50 plays. I mean, that's a rarity. You've got to be able to be on the field. And LSU dominated it in many of the statistical categories in the game, but more importantly on the scoreboard, but 34-10. And again, I think it boils down to you see what this offense looks like without Jaquindon Jackson and without a good running game. And that's what you're going to have. And now, the biggest bullet in the gun is going to be left in the holster. And so I don't think this is a game where they can be especially balanced. I think they're going to come out and try to establish the running game and then let Green perhaps create a little bit. They'll do some control passing stuff early on. They'll want to get Armstrong and those guys involved. They will. But I don't know that they have as many big names and big talents out in the pass pattern than we've seen in recent weeks. Texas, Georgia. And so we've got to formulate a plan. We've got to formulate a plan to win on first down and stop the run and put them in predictable third downs. We can't let them get in a situation where they can dictate terms to us, because at some point the big boy is going to make some plays. No doubt about it. Russell is a guy, obviously, that they truly believe in. But, again, that room has been a little bit beat up, and Dominion hasn't been great, but he is a good complimentary back. And so, again, I expect State to win the football game. I do. And I think that they're going to struggle to score, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be a mark of an improving defense, even though we played much better last week. I think a lot of it's because offensively they're going to be kind of half-cocked in that respect. They're just not going to have the weapon, and the most important weapon of their offense, and they're going to be depending on some unproven players and some guys that there's a reason some of these guys are second and third team, and there's a reason that Sam Pittman goes to Russell and says, "Hey, we need you, big boy, to go out here and eat." Like he said, we're going to see if the horse can't eat. It's a big old joker. And so we're going to have to try to find a way to get him on the ground before he gets going. Because with a full head of steam, he's going to be difficult to tackle on the open field. And all of a sudden you got some defensive backs and guys like that just kind of have to hang on for the ride. And so that's going to be job one. We got to win at the line of scrimmage against an offensive line that has been pretty good. But, again, I do expect State to win the game. And I will repeat that again on Friday. I expect State to win the game. I don't think it's going to be an offensive masterpiece, but I think one of the things that can help State in this game tremendously is to get separation in the first half. Something we have not been able to do since Eastern Kentucky. We've been chasing the game week after week after week. And then last week, what happened? State goes out 7-0, and you get to the break 7-7. And lo and behold, you have a chance in the fourth quarter to pull even or pull ahead, and you couldn't do it. So I think, again, we are progressing and we are ascending in some respects. It's not going to be a great season. We knew it was going to be a challenge even back in the summer to get to 500. We thought we would. Mathematically, we still can, but we're not going to. But the reality of this is that we have to take it a week at a time. You win this week, and you got UMass coming in next week. You find a way to win that one. All of a sudden, you've won a couple of games, and you kind of set yourself up to head into November, and they remember what you do in November. How many times have we gone through this in our history where all of a sudden we kind of find some juice late? And, of course, our situation completely different because of the fact we had to change horses at quarterback after the fourth game of the year. And I remember thinking, man, how great would it be if we could roll into that game 3-0 and Florida coming here 1-2, and lo and behold, we're both 1-2 when we get here. And then things changed. And so the staff, I think, is doing a good job. Again, last weekend was our best showing, despite the fact it wasn't our best result. So I expect to see progress continue this week. And again, if you hadn't done so, go to DutyNobleBook.com. You can order signed copies. Anything ordered through the website is signed. Not doing personalization really unless you come to a book signing at this point. But also, too, we want you to come float with us at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville. And come be a part of things over at genespage.com, the Mississippi State source for athletics information. We love our members, and we love everybody that comes and is a part of that. And even maybe if you can't afford to be a member right now, we'll have some promotions coming up. But if you're looking, for coverage, we provide a ton of free coverage over at Gene's page. So just go there, bookmark the page, save it in your favorites, and come be a part of that. We even have a free message board too. And so come be a part of that, and we think that you'll have a great experience. But so, of course, we'd love for you to be a member, and be sure and cheer for those Bulldogs on Thursday night as they hopefully take one more step closer to the program's first ever Southeastern Conference Championship. We'll be back on Friday to preview our weekend, and by that time, too, we'll have gone through Dogs Talk and a soccer game. We'll have a lot to talk about, and we'll preview a weekend. And every weekend there's been something crazy happening in Southeastern Conference football. You just never know what it's going to be. I love chaos in college football as long as it's not to our detriment, right? But I love it when these games get all convoluted, right? And somebody goes in and beats somebody they're not supposed to. That's why we watch the games. You never know when you're going to see something memorable. You're going to look back one day and say, I remember that game. It was incredible. Nobody gave them a chance, like Vanderbilt beating Alabama. Super stuff. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.